Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Fantasy Realms. This was sent to me by WizKids and is designed by Bruce Glasgow. Your goal as ruler of a faraway land is to build up the mightiest realm in the world. You might build up a massive army to sweep all before you, but that is not the only path to victory. Perhaps your kingdom will take the form of a bursting volcano, or a terrible hurricane sweeping away all in its path. Perhaps you'll control a powerful wizard in his fortress, remote on an inaccessible island and surrounded by impenetrable flames. The choice is yours, for no two realms will be the same. Let me show you how to play. So in Fantasy Realms, each player starts with 7 cards in their hand like this. Now, the object of the game is you want to have the highest scoring hand at the end. Every card has a name, a class, a base strength, and a description. For example, the Warlord here, he's 4 base strength. His bonus, the sum of the base strength of all armies in your hand. Now, on your turn, you have 2 options. I mean, on the first turn, all you can do is draw a card. But yeah, you draw a card either from the deck or take one face up from the discard area. So the first player might go, okay, I'm gonna draw the top card and add it to my hand. Then they look at their cards and they must discard a card to the discard area. So let's say they go, I don't want the Fountain of Life. I'm gonna discard it into the discard area. The next player would then look at their hand and they have the option to either draw the top card or take a card from the discard pile. All cards in the discard area are public and can be taken at any time. Let's say they also draw a card and they decide, I'm gonna discard this Shield of Keth. Now that card is in the discard area. You just keep going like this until there are 10 cards in the discard area. Then you score your hands and whoever has the highest score wins. Now, some of these cards have different effects. Let's take a look at some examples. This Whirlwind card, its bonus is it gets plus 40 points if it's paired with a Rainstorm and either Blizzard or Great Flood. So if you want to maximize this card, you're going to be searching for these cards, like Rainstorm here, plus 10 for each Flood card in your hand. However, it has a penalty, which blanks all flames except lightning. I'll get into blanks in a second. And then you also have Great Flood. This penalty blanks all armies, all lands except mountain, and all flames except lightning. However, if you have these with Whirlwind, you'll get a plus 40 bonus. A card that says something like for each, like this Swamp here, the penalty for this card is you get -3 for each army and flame card you have in your hand. So you have to take that into account. Blanking, like I mentioned before, like this War Dirigible, penalty blanked unless with at least 1 army. Blanked with any weather. When you blank something, that means that card has no suit, no bonuses or penalties, and no base strength, meaning it's just worth nothing. If you have a weather card in your hand with this card, it's effectively a blank card. And also, if you don't have an army card in your hand, it's also blank. And finally, a card like Beastmaster here, it bonus +9 for each beast in your hand, and it clears the penalty on all beasts. So if you have a beast card like this, the dragon, this Beastmaster would make it so you don't have to even worry about this penalty. Otherwise, this dragon would be -40 unless with at least 1 wizard. And that's the game. You just draw a card and discard a card, and you're just going through all of these cards with all these different effects and trying to get the best combination of cards by the time the game is done. I'm not going to go through every single card because there's so many of them, and also it's kind of nice to have a surprise of what exactly is in this pile. But yep, that's pretty much the game. At the end of the game, you use this score pad to score, and highest total is the winner. So I know this game is pretty highly regarded, and I don't think that's unjustified. Because, you know, I think first off, it's a very nice and simple game. You can basically start playing it instantly, because all you have to do is draw a card, put down a card. There are some fun combos you can try and go for, and, you know, these are all perfectly, you know, serviceable qualities it has. But I personally have just never found this game that engaging. I think it doesn't help that a lot of it can feel like luck of the draw. Certain cards need very specific other cards to have any use. And while I know they're going for that kind of push your luck, like can you find the card sort of thing, it can still be a little frustrating if those cards just never get drawn or appear on the table. That, or sometimes in the opposite direction, if you have your hand pretty much set, then the game just becomes draw a card, discard that card over and over, because you're like, I don't need this card, I don't need this card. It can get a little dull. This game to me feels like the first round of a longer, more complicated game, but it's just, this is the whole game. There's a game, for example, called Red Rising. It's a newer game that basically takes this mechanic and then applies it to a larger game overall. And while that game also has its issues, some of which it shares with this game, I still found myself more engaged with that one because there was more going on. I also understand that, you know, this is the predecessor, so, you know, it kind of introduces this idea. And again, the idea of drafting cards into a hand and scoring your hand, it's pretty cool, but it wasn't enough for me to be, like, engrossed. If you're looking for a super quick game you can play multiple rounds of, and you don't necessarily want an overcomplicated experience, this game may be for you. However, for me, I need a little bit more. This is a little too simple, and I found it a little underwhelming. Like, at the end, you just go, okay, score this, and bam. Not to mention that the scoring can be a little fiddly for what it is, so it, again, kind of felt a little, at the end, like, oh, we're done. Underwhelming. Not something I personally love. I think it's okay.